Disney sure is popular with me this year. Whether it's the humorless Peach Dragon remake, or the hodgepodge mess that is Alice Through the Looking Glass, the company is cranking out a projected 19 films between now and summer of 2018. Beyond June 2018's Toy Story 4, there are talks of at least 39 movies that will join the Disney roster in upcoming years, namely sequels and more live-action remakes. Ready to see a live-action Chip 'n Dale? Well, it's happening, along with an Oz the Great and Powerful sequel. Since Disney already has a large amount of IP, simply rehashing and repackaging the works as new is a way to artificially expand their film depository. It's not a creative way, but it's a way. Disney is, after all, a mass media and entertainment conglomerate, and they must make money to sustain the company, even if it involves rehashing their own IP. However, the longer the business dabbles in this habit of rebooting and recycling, the clearer it will become to the public that Disney has lost that creative spark. We have to remember Disney's reputation from the not-too-distant past. They were masterminds of clever, creative works. They didn't follow conventions, they set them. There was a time when the name Disney meant unprecedented excellence, and it seems their wellspring of imagination would never run dry. Sadly, we are now in a new Disney epoch, where remakes and sequels of their movies and characters far outweigh any new IP. So when I heard Disney would be making Indiana Jones 5, I couldn't say I was too surprised. Indiana Jones is one of the world's most iconic characters, having been named the second greatest movie hero of all time by the American Film Institute. The suave, adventurous, snake-fearing archaeologist was created by George Lucas in 1973 when he penned The Adventures of Indiana Smith, inspired by the serial caper flicks popular in the 1930s. Lucas's friend, Steven Spielberg, disliked the surname Smith, so it was changed to Jones. The world was introduced to Dr. Jones in 1981 with Raiders of the Lost Ark, to critical and commercial acclaim. The box office receipts pulled in $212 million in 1981, equivalent to $672 million nowadays, making it the most lucrative Indiana Jones movie after ticket price adjustments. Temple of Doom was released in 1984, and The Last Crusade in 1989, all directed by Spielberg. In an interview, Spielberg said he purposely chose to show Indy riding off into the sunset at the end of Crusade because he felt the series was done. To quote him about Crusade's ending, quote, "I thought that brought the curtain down on the trilogy, and that we were all going to move on and mature into other aspects of filmmaking, and I never thought I would see Indiana Jones again," unquote. Following Crusade, Lucas went on to produce the television series The Chronicles of Young Indiana Jones, but he toiled with the idea of another Indiana Jones flick, one that would go down in infamy and gave rise to the term nuke the fridge. Instead of another 1930s set caper, Lucas wanted the new chapter to reflect the B-grade exploit films popular in 1950s American cinema that focused on the fear of alien invasion. Thus, the story of Indiana Jones and the Saucer Men from Mars was born. The premise had Indy marrying Dr. Elaine McGregor and brought back Henry Jones Sr. Lucas discovered that Joseph Stalin had studied psychic warfare in real life, so he wrote that the Russians were pursuing extraterrestrial beings. Jeb Stewart devised the first screenplay in 1994, and Jeffrey Boehm made even more revisions, presenting his finalized version in March 1996. By the time Lucas showed the draft to Spielberg, the alien invasion flick Independence Day had dominated the summer box office, and Spielberg felt an alien-themed Indy movie would be oversaturation. Lucas put Indy 4 on hold and began work on the Star Wars prequels. In 2000, Harrison Ford, Lucas, Spielberg, and producers Kathleen Kennedy and Frank Marshall decided to brush off the fedora and let Indy tangle with the Russians. M. Night Shyamalan, fresh off his success of The Sixth Sense, was asked to write the script, but he declined. In May 2002, Frank Darabont pens yet another screenplay called Indiana Jones and the City of the Gods. This time around, Indy and Marion Ravenwood had a teenage daughter together, but Spielberg felt it was too similar to Kelly Malcolm from The Lost World, Jurassic Park. After more screenplay revisions of the now titled Indiana Jones and the Atomic Ants by Jeff Nathanson in 2005, David Koepp, who worked on Jurassic Park, War of the Worlds, and Mission Impossible, finally came on board and eventually gave us the finalized screenplay for Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. When the film released on May 22, 2008, it was received with tepid reviews by both audiences and critics, and would become the lowest-ranking indie movie, both in audience favorites and unadjusted revenue. Crystal Skull's less than amiable reception was not due to one particular problem, but many. From a cluttered storyline that reduced Indy to a passive participant, to a dull villain, from the running gag about Dr. Jones's age to poor CGI, the movie was a letdown in a line of one of the best action-adventure franchises. The series had always been hallmarks of grand stunt work and practical effects. Crystal Skull's overindulgence in blurry computer imagery and conspicuous green screen removed all immersion for viewers. Unanimous verdict agreed, the film was played too safe for an Indiana Jones flick. Like The Good Dinosaur, the development delays and rewrites became apparent as a disjointed jumble. Despite the disappointments that was Crystal Skull, Lucas began developing a new Indy adventure. There had been speculation in 2009 that filming would start in 2011 and center around the Bermuda Triangle, but producer Frank Marshall dismissed the rumors. In July 2012, in response to reports that the story was nearing completion, Marshall said the film wouldn't be announced anytime soon, and it may not happen because there wasn't a screenwriter attached to the project. Similar to how the Ark of the Covenant was sealed away and forgotten in Hangar 51, hope for a fifth Indy flick left people's minds over time. Disney acquired Lucasfilms for $4 billion in October 2012, gaining ownership rights to Indiana Jones and Star Wars. And still, even as the Mouse House rejected Lucas's stories he'd penned for future Star Wars installments and rewrote their own, Indiana Jones 5 lay undisturbed in its crate, like an artifact only known through whispered legends. But that crate was pried open in May 2015 when Indy producer and Lucasfilm president Kathleen Kennedy confirmed plans for a fifth Indy Trek. In October 2015, Spielberg said he'd reprise his role as director. On March 15, 2016, Disney divulged that Indiana Jones 5 would come to theaters July 19, 2019, with Harrison Ford returning as the titular hero, and Spielberg, Kennedy, and Marshall coming back as director and producers, respectively. Like Force Awakens, the story will be rewritten in lieu of using Lucas's concept. David Koepp will return to pen the screenplay. Just like how Crystal Skull mirrored how many years had passed in real life since The Last Crusade, this film will take place in 1968, 11 years after Crystal Skull. Characters in Crystal Skull commented on Dr. Jones's age, which means that running gag will be employed again. Indiana Jones was created as an adventurous, whip-cracking protagonist, America's version of James Bond, if you will. Numerous actors have portrayed Bond because the character is always supposed to be in his 30s or 40s. Imagine if only one actor played Bond since 1962's Dr. No, and the other characters in the modern Bond movies kept commenting on his age. Imagine if this older James Bond finally settled down, got married, and retired. James Bond is popular to this day because the films are still being created. The name Indiana Jones used to conjure images of treks into jungles, bare-fisted fights on top of speeding tanks, and swinging over snake-filled pits. Everyday people could imagine they were experiencing those adventures vicariously. With Crystal Skull already labeling Indy as older, and 5 no doubt following suit, 2 out of the 5 films, in a high-octane action series, are insinuating the character is ready to retire. Yes, Harrison Ford is the classic Indiana, and Spielberg has admitted that he never intends to replace him, but that's limiting the many other adventures the character can have. What if, one day, Harrison Ford says he doesn't want to play Indiana Jones anymore? Does that mean the franchise is finished? Will no one else ever get to don the hat and whip? Like I said, Ford is the quintessential Dr. Jones. But he can't be the only actor to ever play him in films, especially now that Disney has opened the crate and will inevitably make at least 3 more Indy chapters. Reports are suggesting Indy 5 could be a Lega sequel, in that Dr. Jones finally passes the torch to a younger hero, which would help longtime fans accept the newer generation of characters. It could do a soft reboot like Force Awakens, reliving classic scenes and acknowledging the original with callback references. If Indy does hand over the whip, will it be to his son, Mutt? If so, will Shia LaBeouf be recast? Or will Mutt be written out of the script with the premise he's in Vietnam? And here's where things get tricky. Let's say Indy does give Mutt the fedora. People know and love Indiana Jones. Disney is now trying its hand at the franchise, but will they want to make a slew of Mutt Williams films? A way to keep Indiana in the game is to have him find some artifact that reverses his age, and the new actor will partake in further adventures down the road. If that path is taken, though, the era settings will be in the 1970s onward. The series showed bygone eras, which lent an air of romantic mystery to the stories. Perhaps Dr. Jones will travel back in time, solving the dilemma with his age and the time period. Disney may forego all that, though, and, spoiler alert, kill off the character like they did to Han Solo in Force Awakens. Solo's fate was a surefire way to garner more ticket sales and to exploit fans' emotions. Since it worked so well with Force Awakens, they may opt to do it here. Still, if that happens, the story will find Indy's predecessor in fairly modern times, and that aura of treasure hunting and lost city discovering in a bygone era will be gone, replaced with a national treasure modern-day vibe. If it gets to that point, the franchise is done. One has to wonder how the future films will be handled. The main filmmakers responsible for the 4 projects have returned, but the property now belongs to Disney. The first 3 installments were full of violence, peril, death, and some gore. Temple of Doom, rated PG, prompted the MPAA to create the PG-13 rating in response to the film's imagery of human sacrifice. Crystal Skull strayed from the traditional Indy blueprint and toned down the violence, but it was labeled as too kid-friendly and safe. Disney, wanting to broaden the audience and maintain a squeaky clean reputation, may further sanitize the new series. But we mustn't forget, Dr. Jones directly killed 43 people in the first 3 films. Alright, let's get down to pre-reviewing this thing. Will people want to watch Indiana Jones 5? Crystal Skull disappointed many people, and the filmmakers will have to work hard to win back fan loyalty by presenting a movie that captures the franchise's gritty magic again. Additionally, most people are tired of CGI nowadays, and if filmmakers decide to rely primarily on that instead of practical effects and stunt work, the product won't be captivating, and people will be reminded of the phony-looking vine scene and sword fight from Crystal Skull. Simply put, this new story has some very high expectations riding on it. What will critics think about it? Chances are Indiana Jones 5 will be better than Crystal Skull, just like how Force Awakens was better than the Star Wars prequels. While the former isn't the best Star Wars chapter, it far exceeds the notorious prequels. Indy 5, while not the best Dr. Jones adventure, will be better than Crystal Skull. Critics will enjoy Ford's portrayal of the archaeologist, which will overshadow the younger co-stars. Was it a good idea to make this movie? To atone for Crystal Skull, yes, but for resurrecting a series that was seemingly put to rest 27 years ago, no. The series should have stopped at Crusade's sunset ending, not continue years later, reminding the audience about Dr. Jones's mortality. Alas, Crystal Skull pried off the sarcophagus lid, and Disney will keep it wedged open. If Crystal Skull is an indication of the series' new formula, what with the age gags, safe storytelling, flat villains, unfocused drive, fan service, and overflowing CGI, it's easy to say the adventure's days are numbered. And finally, what about the lasting impression? Whether Indy is killed, passes the baton to someone else, or becomes young again, this will probably be the last installment where Harrison Ford plays the swashbuckling archaeologist. It'll be difficult to say goodbye, since he's been searching for lost treasure and fleeing from poisonous darts and snakes since 1981. However, just like how Crusade's Holy Grail grants it eternal life, there's a chance the character will live on for generations to enjoy. Personally, I'd like to see Indiana continue to be the main hero, even if another actor is used. Disney is holding the figurative Sankara stones in regards to the Indy franchise. They can either bring a great future to it, or a terrible destruction. Like Star Wars, Indiana Jones has a worldwide following, and continuing the legacy must be done with care. And since Disney is bolstering Star Wars' presence with new areas in the parks and merchandise, they should start doing the same for the Indiana Jones line. It's been reported that Disney Hollywood Studios in Florida will shut down the Indiana Jones Stunt Spectacular for the Star Wars Land expansion, with no clear plans to open an Indiana Jones adventure ride like the ones in California and Japan. Is Jock Lindsay's hangar bar in Disney Springs the only recognition the series will get from the Mouse House? It's a bit troubling that Disney is pouring so much time and resources into the Star Wars brand while brushing Indiana Jones aside. Both Star Wars and Indiana Jones are lucrative IPs. Some people may say Star Wars sells more merchandise in the parks currently, but that's because the presence is at the point of overload. Maybe if Disney starts retrofitting entire sections of a park with an Indiana Jones theme and ride, it could give Star Wars Land a run for its money. Imagine an Indiana Jones themed deluxe hotel on the Disney World property. The fact is, Disney now owns Indiana Jones, and they must bestow it as much love and attention as Star Wars if they want people excited about it again. And they should begin soon. After all, they need to wash away the bad taste of Crystal Skull from people's mouths. I've done 3 pre-reviews this year about Disney films. What's next? You have got to be kidding me. Someone's got a gripe about it, and that someone is Marplotic.